All right, good morning. Y'all doing okay today? Good morning. All right, so my name is Nathan Reese. I am the consultant for electrical power and consultants. Electrical power and control, actually. I've been with EntreU for about 4 years now, since the beginning, and I've really enjoyed getting to learn and grow with Micah and Isaiah and with David. Not everyone who has started has continued all the way through, but so far I guess we're the few, the proud. So I've really enjoyed getting to work with electrical power and control because it's given me a chance to look at an industry that I'm not familiar with in the least. So a little bit about me, I am actually a manager at Chick-fil-A. I've worked with Chick-fil-A for about 5 years now, and I also work for corporate part-time. And so during my time working with Chick-fil-A as a trainer, doing grand openings throughout the country, this has helped me have a fresh perspective on a lot of the training side of things. It's also helped me see and learn a lot on leadership and growth and development. And so I'm really excited to be here with y'all today. Today I'm going to be discussing 4 key parts. First is the findings throughout the 16 weeks that I've been talking and meeting with Pat, the different things that I've come across, whether it be within his business or within him as an individual. Next I'm going to be talking about the core issues. In any business, it always rests on the leader, the success of the business, and also the failure of the business. However it goes, it's always on the leader. So the core issues that I found within Pat, not that he is like a bad person, he's actually a fantastic person that's really worked with me a lot on this, and he's been very humble, so I've appreciated it a lot. So the issues or the root things that I found with him, solutions, the solutions to help him project his business into a new area of growth and development, not just so that he will experience personal growth, but also so that he can carry his business to the next level. And finally, it will be the implementation, because even if you receive all this great ideas and stuff like that, it does you no good if you don't implement them in your business. Excuse me. And by the way, if you have any questions, if you want to raise your hand in the middle of the presentation, I'm totally fine with that. I love just interacting with the audience. It's something I'm better geared that way. So first, going over the findings. Over the past 16 weeks, I've gotten to really know Pat, and I wanted to have Pat's picture up here, so you can, since he's not going to be in the video, it's a great shot there. So getting to know Pat and his business, I learned a little bit of what his desire was. And our first meeting, he explained that his desire was to be a voice in the business, but he didn't want to necessarily be married to it. Now I know each of y'all who've had experience with owning a business or being leaders, y'all really kind of take ownership of it. It's like your baby in a sense. But at the same time, it can be very draining, and especially if you're also in a relationship, managing a business and a relationship, and then family and all this stuff, it gets really overwhelming at times. So he explained that he wanted to be a voice in it so that way he can step back and so he could focus on serving other people. One of the things that I've learned about Pat, which I'll get to, and actually right here, is serving others. It's something that he's really passionate about. Sorry, my alarm is going off. It's not to wake up, by the way. My alarm just... Yeah. So his passion for serving others is something that really shines through and you see in his daily life. And anytime somebody expresses their desire to me or to anyone else, it's always important to see what is it they need to get to the point, what is it they need to do to get to the point of that desire. So he says he wants to be a voice in the business without being married to it, so what does he need to do to get to that point? It's not so much like, oh, I really want to do this. Well, if you just say, I want to do this, like if I say I want to go to Walmart, but I'd make no intentions to get in my car, turn on the ignition, and drive down the road, I'm not going to get to Walmart, no matter how much I wish. Even if I want an Uber, I have to press the button to get an Uber. So passion. Pat is very passionate about serving others. He serves at his church, he serves and gives back. His wife, actually, they take care of some of their nieces and nephews or of their grandchild, but they do it for free because they want to give back the way someone gave back to them in the first place. And so it's a very selfless mentality, which is one thing I've really loved getting to know about you. And now when serving others, you always need to keep track of what do I need to do to continue paying it forward. So my father, back when we used to live in Texas, I'm from Texas originally, he used to be a Spanish pastor over a large church. And he really enjoyed his time there. One of the things that the church really pushed was called RAC, Random Acts of Kindness. And growing up around 11 or 12 years old, I saw that he was so big about giving back to the community. But one of the things that I noticed, and our family noticed and suffered for over time, is that he was so focused on giving back out there that he was neglecting our family. And our family was not as strong as we needed to be. We really fell apart, and we, instead of uniting together and serving God as a whole unit, we were kind of just doing our own little thing as individuals. And so when serving others, it's always important to see what is it that you need to do to continue paying it forward. Whether that's having the funds to continue paying it forward, or whether that's having the heart and the energy to keep paying it forward. And the next thing we talked about was his struggles. And he's mentioned before how he always has struggled to implement new things or new processes that he comes across. Whenever I first started my meetings with him, he was saying that he had recently signed up for Meet Edgar, and so he was going to put new information and articles that he had to create so that it would share on social media and things like that. But in order to get to that point, he had to actually sit down and write down the articles. And he said, like, anytime he got there, he just get that writer's cramp, and he didn't know how to start doing that process. Which is understandable, because it's really easy to talk about it, but whenever you sit down and get that computer, sometimes we all draw a blank. But I knew he was very much capable of it, because sometimes he would tell me every single component of a single breaker or of a square D, or how to plug this in. I was just like, how do you know this? But at the same time, he explained it in a very easy to understand way. So if I could understand it at some points, then that means he's a very good teacher. So with this struggle, you always need to ask yourself, what can I do to overcome my weaknesses? One of the things that David has taught us for all the years in Entre You is you always need to play to your strengths, but you need to delegate your weaknesses. For me, there's some things I'm really strong in. I love connecting with people. I love the human interaction side of it. And so whenever I found out I was going to be consulting for electrical power control, I'm like, what's that? It's an e-commerce business that sells electrical components. I was like, wow, this is going to be great. I'm going to get to interact with customers. This is just going to be, and it was a little bit disheartening at first, but then I realized, like, this is actually not something that it's a weakness for me. It's something that I need to push myself. So there's some times where you need to push yourself to overcome things that are challenges for you. But at the same time, as a business owner, you also need to be aware of, this is something that's a challenge for me, but I can overcome this. But this is something that is a weakness, and I don't need to waste my time in this. So asking yourself, what can you do to overcome those weaknesses? Now, for core values. And some of the things that actually, I think you'll find that some of the things that we talked with, that Isaiah mentioned in his first presentation, or kind of bleed over into this one, because core values are something that is important in all aspects of life, in every individual, every business. So whenever Pat and I first started meeting, he did not have a listed out core values. And so in one of the meetings, we talked about it and discussed the importance of it. And your core values are basically who you are as an individual, what drives you, what motivates you. And whenever I first started with Entre You, David encouraged us all to come up with our core values. So for me, my top three are family, community, and trust. And then there's also truth, loyalty, honesty, and there's a couple others that I've noticed ever since I set these in as my boundaries, like they dictate how I live my life. I didn't realize how fully it was happening until I started talking with Pat about the core values. And since then, I've actually started encouraging my sister to do the same thing, and so she's narrowing down her core values now. But if you violate one of your core values, it's something that if you feel like you have just cheated on your spouse, or you feel like you have just blasphemed against the name of God or something, you just feel like terrible about it. And it's not because, in a weird way, it's not because you have done physical harm to your body, but it's because it's something that's so important to you, and then you gave up on that. So Pat defined his eventually as dependable, service to others, and punctual. And one thing that was very interesting is that the way he defined his core values, I feel they actually do line up with who you are as an individual. You are very dependable, you are very punctual, and you have a huge heart for serving others, as I've mentioned. During the times that we've met, we usually would meet like every Monday. There's only 2 times you weren't able to make it, and only 1 time that you, I think, had to back out because something came up as an emergency. But you gave me a heads up notice either or both times in advance, and you told me how sorry you were, but at the same time, we had that relationship where I understood if you had to do something, you have a responsibility as a business owner, and we had that mutual respect for one another. And so he was always very dependable in our meetings, and he would provide any resources that I needed to help me with my presentation. Service to others, like I said, he's provided multiple examples of how he is serving others, and how he's explained, and I've learned over our interaction how his mom has had some medical issues over the past little while actually, and he has made every effort to go and take his mom to the hospital, or to pay for bills, or to do different things to show her and his brothers how much he does love and care for her. And in a day and age where a lot of people, as soon as their parents get to a certain age, they like to take them to a nursing home, that's really refreshing for me to see someone that is actually taking that extra step and doing, as the Bible says, honor your father and your mother. And punctual. He was always very timely, and so whenever actually he first told me that this is what one of his core values was, I was a little bit convicted, because like the first couple of times I was like 1 or 2 minutes late, because I'm a very expressive person, and expressives naturally have a hard time in time management, and so that's something I've had to learn to cope with and set boundaries for, so that it doesn't hinder me as much, or it doesn't stump me from growing. Am I perfect? No, I still am late every once in a while, but it's not half as bad as it used to be. And so next is going to be vision. Now, vision is something that is vital actually in your business. I asked you if you had a vision, and at the first you said, I haven't looked at it in a while, I think it's in a drawer somewhere. And then you said, I think our vision would be, to fix the cares of the electrical industry. And which is he does work in the electrical industry. It does seem like a very valid vision for someone to have. But at the same time, I don't feel like that is exactly everything that it doesn't encompass who you are as a business and as an individual. The reason that vision is very important, well, I'll get to that in a second when we get to the core issues, but it is something that's kind of like a lighthouse in a sense. So when you're out in the sea and the storms of this world, it's something that is shining forth, so you can say, that's where I'm heading towards. And some of the other findings that I had was that in the marketing social media, they use Infusionsoft for their email marketing. They have, and he showed me everything that, like how it works, and it was very interesting actually. I had always heard of Infusionsoft. David had always recommended it. I never knew how it worked, and I never actually took the initiative to try it out. And social media, you've got Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. A YouTube page, actually, we talked a little bit and we worked a little bit on creating videos. They've had a YouTube page for some time. And another little side note about me, when I started EntreU, my vision and my goal was to have a videography business. And I did have one for a time. I put it on hold because I was violating some core values and some boundaries that I had. And so I felt if I am not keeping true to who I am, I shouldn't continue in this business. So for a time, I put it on hold. I may return into that, I'm not sure. But I'm definitely waiting to be led of God. And I decided this last semester I'll just focus everything on EntreU. And so in YouTube videos, we worked a little bit and we talked about if we were to ever create a commercial for him in the future, and really using YouTube as a platform to give back to his audience. And so whenever we have things like Meet Edgar, which is what he uses to share the articles that he posts on his blog to his different social media platforms, one of the things he can share on his blog is YouTube videos. And so if he's creating these YouTube videos, people can look back and see these videos that will teach them how to prepare their business so that they don't experience electrical failure, things like that. And with YouTube, you can also use these in Infusionsoft and send the links to customers so that they can see, well, even if you're not always trying to sell me something, because whenever you keep getting emails constantly, it's about, hey, buy this, hey, 50% off on this, it gets kind of annoying. But you see, like, hey, this is just to say, I hope this adds value to you. I hope you can use this and implement this in your business. You'll stay safe. And so I found also all the social media platforms that he was using were acceptable for his particular business. Because there are some businesses that if you are more just consumer based, or if you're not business to business, LinkedIn isn't as valuable to you. But because he does work with a lot of companies, it is a greater value. And as finally for findings, financial goals. When we first met, you mentioned that you wanted to increase your gross income to 1.5 million within 3 years. I'm sorry, to 1 million within 3 years. After a 5-year period, you wanted that to be 1.5 million. And so if that's the case, this is what it would look like. And now looking at profit and loss statements from the past 2 to 3 years, you have experienced some decrease, but at the same time, you were experiencing some decrease, but you had less staff. So the amount of sales that you were producing for the amount of staff you had was actually very good. Now, if you continue that, your growth will become stagnant, and it will not be as good as it could unless you implement the solutions that we're going to be talking about today. This doesn't mean that you're going to stay that way. I don't believe you're going to stay that way. I believe you're actually going to grow as an individual and as a business. And so I'm really praying and working hard so that this will add value to you. So going to the core issues, and I really wish I would have brought my water up here because I get really dry mouth, but it's okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, he's got me some water, actually. Appreciate that, Micah. That's just water, by the way. So vision casting. Vision casting is something that is very important, and God has recently actually been showing me a lot on the importance of vision. Where there's no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he. It's in Proverbs 29:18. And you said that your vision was to fix the cares of the electrical industry, and I feel that that is a vision in some aspects, but it's not as strong as it could be. A vision is actually very vital. So whenever God was taking his people through the wilderness, he gave them that law. So he said, like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be my people. You're going to serve me with all of your heart. And anytime that they were getting distracted, if they would focus on that, it would it would be like another lighthouse shining for them. Now, I mentioned that I work for Chick-fil-A. And over the years, I've really come to appreciate and admire the founder, Truett Cathy. And I don't know how much y'all know about Chick-fil-A, but Truett Cathy founded it back in 1964, Chick-fil-A. He had a business beforehand called the Dwarf House, but he invented the chicken sandwich. It used to be called the chicken steak burger, actually, but it sounded better as the Chick-fil-A. So when he invented it, things were doing really well. They were the only company that was serving a chicken sandwich. Well, in the 1970s, after they had been doing very well, they had decided we've grown and expanded so much, it's time for us to get our corporate office. So they took out a loan, and they got an $11 million loan for a new corporate office. And they're like, well, we're really growing, this is really exciting. And then something happened. The other fast food restaurants, they started coming out with their own chicken products, their own Chick-fil-A sandwiches, or McChickens, or McDonald's, or different things like that. And when they were rolling these out, they realized that other people were like, hey, well, we don't have to buy Chick-fil-A's, we can buy this for a little cheaper, or we can do this instead. And so they started experiencing a drop in sales for the first time. And then there was a huge strain on the poultry industry, and their sales started plummeting. And they were freaking out because this can't happen. What are we going to do? And they were freaking out, and so they had an emergency board meeting, and they had a two-day retreat. And so the entire time they were like hashing ideas. What can we do with this or that or whatever? And like eventually, when everyone's just like worn out, Dan Cathy, who is Truett Cathy's son, who's the current CEO of Chick-fil-A, he just goes, okay, wait. So why are we here? And they're like, well, you know why we're here? Like, no, why are we here? What is our purpose with this business or in life? So they go up to the whiteboard, they write down a couple of things, and they kind of keep brainstorming for hours. And whenever they leave the retreat and go back to their new corporate office, everyone's like, okay, you have a way to fix the business, right? No, we have this. This is our mission statement. This is our vision. And they're just like, this is it. And that mission statement was to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that is entrusted to us and have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. Now, in that whole vision statement, it never mentions anything about their industry. It never mentions anything about chicken. But they said, this is our vision. This is our lighthouse. This is where we're going to be aiming towards. And as soon as they implemented that, they started experiencing growth. And they have not experienced a decrease in sales ever since. So they are now a almost $12 billion company with over 2,500 locations in about 48, almost 49 states. They're working on Hawaii really soon. And they have some in Canada and a licensee location in England. But I found it so interesting how all of that stemmed from them identifying what their purpose was and what their vision was. If you don't have a direction of where you're going to go to, you can possibly get there, but it's going to be a lot harder. And I was telling David the other day, it's kind of like if I said I want to go to Canada. I can get to Canada if I really tried, but at the same time, if I don't have a map, it's going to get a lot harder and it's going to take me a lot longer. So why go the long way around when I could just simply define that vision and head for it? And so a vision is not something that is optional. It is vital, actually, to the success of your business. And so with that vision, I want to encourage you to define that vision, and I will get to that in a little bit, but clearly define that vision for your company and for yourself. So fear of delegation is something else that I've seen a little bit in your business. At one point you had mentioned that you want to eventually give your business over to somebody else, and then when I asked you more about it, you said you would be worried that some of your employees would run into the ground, which is I understand. You are not going to give like a 14-year-old who's never shot a gun a big rifle just so they can shoot it for the first time. You have to teach them how to do it. And so for me, I feel you need to develop others and focus on developing them and developing a dream team within your business, but you can only do that if you delegate. Great dream team coaches delegate to the people that are below them, so that they can have more free time to focus on the things that are important, but two, so that you always have three choices: do, delegate, or delete. And if you're doing everything in your business, that means you're doing everything on your own. You have no need for employees, but at the same time, you're not going to be serving as many people as you possibly could. An appropriate delegation, like I said, will free you up to serve others. And so knowing your mentality, how you want to serve others, by learning how to delegate and by learning how to give certain control over to other people, that will enable you to serve others. You can have more free time, and it will also help you be more profitable so that you can give back to others. Now, I will get to that again in the implementation solutions area. And this kind of carries over into the growth of the team. A leader always has to play to win, and the moment that you start playing to not lose is whenever you start experiencing a decline in your growth. If we're so focused on not losing, then we're not going to actually achieve all that we could. We're not reaching our full potential. So I found that whenever stress levels are high and productivity is low, it's usually a result of the following. It's either that there's not that training is not a top priority, that there's an over-reliance of on-the-job trial and error, and that there are unclear expectations. Now, working with Chick-fil-A, doing grand openings and stuff like that, there are many times where we have, day one, we have brand new team members, and they're running window by themselves, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that we're leaving them there like, oh, we're really behind, like this car's been waiting for 15 minutes, so that's a shame. That we teach them, and there's a whole process that we do to teach them efficiently and to make sure that we are protecting the customer experience. That is always our number one goal, to protect the customer experience, but train effectively at the same time. And so by being intentional about growing and developing your team, which I know you do give back actually a lot to your team. You are very good at building that relationship with them. But there's a certain point where it goes beyond just building a relationship, and it goes into investing in them and to giving them some of the reins so that they can learn and grow for themselves. So doing this will help you really refocus on revenue generating activities. So getting to the solutions, one is identity. I feel like if you really hone in on who your identity is as an individual, yes, but also as a business, it'll really help you navigate to where you need to get to. So fully defining your vision and your core values, and you've listed the 3 core values that you have, and when you put your vision and your core values together, it gives you your mission, and which Isaiah talked about in his presentation. Your mission, once you know what your mission is, that helps you determine what your goals are. Once you know what your goals are, that shows you what activities you need to do to achieve the goals, to achieve your mission, and still staying true to your vision and to your core values. So your business should always reflect your personal vision, values, and mission, and that's the only way that you will have integrity within you and your business as one. So training, it's really important for you to create a training program. This will be sure that it's consistent and effective training for all of your new hires. In some of our conversations, you've said that like we'll just we'll train them when they get here, things like that, or you'll teach them all the positions. But I have found that when working at stores that did have a training program versus working at stores that did not have a training program, there's a huge difference actually in the team members. Team members didn't know basic things that everyone should know, whether to say my pleasure or whether it was to how to make a milkshake. And so having that concise and clear training program will really increase communication. And if you have a business without communication, things get really splotchy and things are not going to be delegated effectively. Things are just going to fall through the cracks. So this will help you to train your eventual successor actually. If you create a training program, it's not just this is how you train each person for this, but it's also creating a roadmap. This will show them when you finish with this, you can move on to this next position eventually, and then they can work their way up, so that if you felt like God put it on your heart, this is somebody that I feel that can take my business, then you can sign it over to them, but with confidence. And this will really alleviate stress for you and help you give you a little more peace of mind. Because when you try to rely on just yourself or your ability to train, although you're an effective teacher, if you don't have an outline to go by, then you're not going to get through to them as well as you could. Now, for better opportunities, whenever somebody does not line up with your vision and with your core values, you always need to free them up for better opportunities. And it's not because you don't value them as individuals, but if you're saying this is where we're headed and someone just like, I'm heading this way, what's the purpose of hiring them for your business? It's kind of like at the store that I currently work at, there was an employee that used to work there. I never met him, but he wasn't really guest focused. He wasn't really passionate about serving people. And so one time he was directing traffic, and when you're directing traffic in the parking lot, it gets a little hectic, it's a little crazy, and you're more likely to get a little frustrated. And then this one lady just like cussed him off, or cussed at him because he did not let her go first. And he just proceeds to flip her the middle finger and yell right back at her, cussing her off. And when the operator saw that, he stomped out there, ripped off his name tag and his safety vest. You're fired. Get out of here. Now that's an easy way to tell whenever somebody's core values do not really line up with their own. And this had been actually a recurring issue. They had issues with him not having a guest mentality. But it's not always going to be that obvious. So you have to look and see who in my business has the heart to serve others, who is dependable and who is reliable. And if they don't fall in with that, then you know they're not helping me to grow my business. This is causing me to experience a decrease in sales. Once you do free them up for better opportunity, that gives you the freedom to hire a new employee that will replace them, and you put them through that training program, and it will allow them to grow your business. And once everyone is heading in the same direction, you will experience that unity. Now, for the implementation, casting that vision, like I mentioned earlier, share that vision with the team. I've worked in 2 stores where the operator cast the vision, but he never lived it, and he didn't expect the staff to live it. And another one where he's not casting the vision at first, but he's starting to work on it, and everyone's falling in line with him because he's done a good job in hiring the right people. So everyone should learn this vision by heart. Whenever I first started at Chick-fil-A, the first thing that my trainer told me, the corporate purpose, you really need to memorize this. You need to know what the core 4 are. You need to know this is. And at first I didn't see the value behind it, but then when it fully hit me, to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us, and to have a positive influence on who come in contact with us. It's like, it's not about me, it's about glorifying God. So how am I going to glorify God? And so imparting that vision on the team members, even if they're not Christians, we're not saying that they have to be Christian, that they have to submit to our doctrine or anything like that, but it's saying like, we're serving a purpose that's higher than us. It's not about us, it's about them and having that positive influence, and about reaching and growing with our customer base. So you can use this vision, the core values, to make decisions for you. If you run something by your core values and it violates one or more of those core values, you know this is not something that I need to do as an individual or for my business. So hire those, like I said, that share those same values. Once you define your top 3 core values, I would say to go back and identify your top 7. The top 3 are the ones that they're just like, it's kind of more defined, like if somebody ran into you, like, well, these definitely line up with you. But then when you say the other 7, like that does line up with them too, but it's just the top 3 are the ones that you hold the most dear to you. And so I would say to have a monthly group session to highlight one of your core values or your vision. One store, what they did is every month they had one of their leaders highlight, this is what one of our core values is, then talk about the importance of it, and that entire month they would focus on how are we, like service to others, taking that for example, how are we serving our customer base to the best of our abilities, not meaning that we're being a doormat letting them walk all over us, but how are we serving them in a way that adds value to them and adds value to us and is mutually beneficial. And even, actually real quick, even with this over here in casting the vision, if you notice, Jesus did this with his disciples. He said, go ye out into the world and preach the gospel. He cast a vision for them. But at the same time, he had to do that effectively by training them. And as far as delegation goes, that's what Jesus did as well. He delegated to his disciples, you're going to go do this. He sent them out and he brought them back in. How did it go? And they told him everything that they did, and they were able to, or he was able to retrain them, rehone in and focus on what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong. And as far as delegation goes, I feel like you need to practice on delegating your weaknesses in the marketing area. We've talked about how there's some things that you're good at, but you feel like delegating it to Trustway and having the marketing team handle a lot of the things with Meet Edgar or a lot of the creating the content, they would be able to do it better. And so rather than hiring an employee to do the marketing for you, you could just delegate it to them, and it would be, if not it would be a better cost for you and would pay off in the long run. And you could always expand into different areas because you already use Review Hero Pro with them and other aspects of their marketing. Now, if you have over 1,700 prospects within your target market alone, when you delegate, that gives you the opportunity to focus on reaching that target market. If you're starting to get caught up into working the day-to-day minutia there at the business, then you're not able to see, okay, what new products can I get that are on sale so that I can sell them and generate a profit on that? What people can I get in contact with? Because although you do have a large network, it doesn't mean that you just stop at a large network. You need to hone that down and not just get a bunch of people, but get the right people and then find more of that right target market. So once you create the training program, you can outline the responsibilities of each role, and that'll help you to delegate and know which ones I can delegate to this one, I can't delegate to this one. And an effective training program will always have a roadmap to grow within the organization, like I was talking about earlier. Whenever I first started as an employee, I noticed that there was times where I got to a position and I felt stuck, and I felt like, well, this is what my job is. I just need to do this day in, day out. And whenever a leader actually started investing into me and saying, well, would you want to become this? I'm like, well, I would love to. And I started growing, and growing as an individual will always, if your employees are growing as individuals, it will always add value to your business. Christian Cortez, he's your son-in-law. He's worked with you for a good amount of time, but I feel like because his core values do not seem to line up with yours, because there's been contradiction in a lot of things, I feel like he's not the best suited employee for your business. And it's not easy for me to say because I love Christian. I text him every once in a while and he's a great guy, but it's not to be mean. It's because he is not happy working in this workplace, and he's been trying to find another job. And sometimes releasing him will help him to find that job a little faster. Now, if you were to hire, if you were to fire Christian and hire another employee, Facebook ads are a great way to do that. David was telling me how he got 32 responses whenever he put an ad saying like, hey, within 3 days, 32 responses, like this is a position available, who's looking for a job. And during this time, COVID-19, everybody's looking for a job. Well, not everybody, a lot of people are looking for a job. But when you're looking for a new team member, I'm looking for a new team member that will add value to your business and that they line up with your core values and with your mission statement. So once you define that, it's easier for you to say, this person does, this person doesn't, and you can delete half of this already. Because Christian he has a great heart, but he's not the right person for the right position, sitting in, like him being expressive and sitting in an office all day. I tell people I interned briefly here at Trustway with David, and it was a great organization. I love Trustway and I love David as a leader, but I was going crazy not interacting with people all day because I was sitting down at a desk, and when Jordan or whenever Lauren or some intern would walk by, I'd be, hey, how you doing? Yeah, and I just started talking with them and distracting them from their work. So knowing Christian and knowing how my expressive style is, I'm just like, I feel bad for him at times because he's at a computer all day. And so I feel like this would help him grow, and it will help your business grow as well. So as far as final thoughts, because you're such a giver, it's really important for you to establish boundaries that are healthy to enable you to give back, but not give to your detriment. Because in money styles, I feel like we talked about in year one in Entrepreneur University, you're more of the martyr. So you're really good at giving back to people. And sometimes it's also to your detriment, and that can take a toll on your finances. It can take a toll on your health. And so having these boundaries will really help you. And I would say using your accountability partner or using a mentor, your pastor, or your spouse is always a great. They're always good at seeing what you're trying to cover up or what you're not really being totally honest with. They'll call you out. This is what the facts are. And so that's one of the benefits of having these people in your life. So once you begin delegating responsibility within your business, you can alternate responsibilities to respond to emergency service requests. You've mentioned that you have that 24-hour emergency service. but let's say if you start getting calls regularly, if you have someone else that is trained up how to do that, you can say this week I'll handle it, this next week you'll handle it, so that even if a call comes up, you can still have that time set aside for family. In the Bible, God said, honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. And I keep mine on Saturday, you keep yours on Sunday. But if you don't stay true to keeping that Sabbath, and if you keep working constantly, one, you're going to experience burnout, and you're going to get frustrated. And I've found that God told us this not because like I'm forcing you to rest because I'm God and because this, whatever. He's doing it because like I love you. I know if you keep going, you're going to burn out. You're gonna get discouraged, and so this is something that's really important for us as individuals, because whenever I started, in Sabbath, I'm just gonna focus on spending time with God and His Word and working on myself as an individual, and I have much more energy to go throughout the week and do everything that I need to do than whenever I'm working 24/7. So this will, I feel, really help you grow as an individual. I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to be your consultant and for working so well with me. And just because I've finished this semester doesn't mean I'm not going to be here as a resource. If you need anything, I will be there to help you create a training program, or whether it be to create a new video or promotional ad. So thank you, and thank you everyone for your patience. So.
Questions? I guess not really an important question, just to
Turn on the lights. Okay.
nail on the head, I believe. I mean, he hit where I knew, or hit where some of the blind spots, but some of it I knew as far as particular employee Christian. He is my son-in-law, my first grandbaby, but yeah, it's just the limited time he needs to go. It's a hard thing to do, because I fired quite a few people in my life. The first person I ever fired, they came in with a hammer. The second person really had an issue. The third person went and committed suicide. So I had a stigma with that person after that. The fourth one, they thanked me for waiting so long, because I had that stigma built up, that fear of that. So yeah, you're right. Definitely doesn't line up with what we stand for. There is some contradiction there. Defining the mission statement, I think, is spot on and hand in hand with that. I know what I feel, but as far as honing that down to where it resonates, and I'm able to practice what I preach and convey it to them and revisit that on a regular basis, needs work. So I think you did a great presentation.
Thank you.
Some good truths, very good truths. Good
Nathan,
job.
how old are you?
Do you want to take a guess at it?
I'm going to give you 21.
I am 22, turned 23 in June. So thank you. Usually people are just like, so you're starting high school? I'm like, I'm not in high school.
I mean, based on what you were saying to us, but I mean, I just thought that your presentation was engaging, and it was humorous, and it was just full of information. I didn't even want to try to take a note.
Well, thank you.
It was very good.
I appreciate that.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
We never would have guessed you were expressive.
Really?
That was well done. I have two questions for a couple people here. Do you think this posting a job on Facebook really works?
Oh my goodness, I did it one time before. It was hard. You got so many people that come.
Oh, really?
That's my sarcasm coming out, in case any of y'all don't know me. These folks came to us from Dave's Facebook post.
I was telling them yesterday that I saw the Trust Me Marketing ad, and I applied, and in literally a couple of seconds, somebody responded. I don't know if it was automatic or not. And I said, this must be a scam. Nobody gets back to you that fast. But it worked.
So it was Facebook. Wow. And Pat, I just kind of got the feeling that you weren't real thrilled about the whole Facebook thing?
No, the overwhelming response I got from
Oh, I see.
Oh yeah, I had
okay.
too many applicants. I mean, I had resumes just, or as I like to say, storybooks. The resumes are just not, yeah.
It's kind of funny because I only put one question on the application, and it was, do you have any experience in marketing? If so, what? Right? And so what it was, my sole purpose in it was an easy way to start weeding out, right?
Okay.
Because out of the 30 odd applicants that we got, roughly half of them either didn't answer the question at all, essentially it was a required question, by the way, so you gotta put something there. So it was answers like yes, or no, stuff like that. I'm like, okay, you didn't read the second part of the question, no. If you're that inattentive to detail and being able to actually answer one question, give me an opportunity. No one's ever given me an opportunity. You're fired.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, so it was one of those things. It became easy to narrow it down because I implemented a structure, right?
Okay.
So that was my quick and easy. Okay, this is how I weed out most of them. If you can't answer my question or answer it appropriately, I don't really care what the answer is. Even if somebody said, "Look, I really don't have any experience in this. However, boom, 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 boom," right? I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was that thought process of that. How can I weed them out? And realistically, what I was looking for the only thing that I look for in resumes and in asking those kind of questions, to be able to determine whether I even want to give someone an interview is, do I see something that might line up with my core values? If I see something that's opposite of any of my core values, it's a no. Period. I'm just gonna end up.
Which, fast forward to now, the fruit of the issue with that individual is there's some conflict, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the things that I appreciate about what Nathan did, and I kind of went back and was looking at it as well, when he looked at like the financial goals and the little chart that's, a less than sign.
Yeah, I got that. A decrease.
Yeah, so what I actually wanted to look at is there a correlation between him having, out of the employees that you have, 50% of your employee base does not match the core values of the organization, so is there a correlation between that and the lack of increase in net profit? And there's absolutely a correlation.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there is.
So, when you look at that, not only is that individual costing you emotionally, they're costing you financially, right? And it's not just costing you, it's costing your family, it's costing your future, it's costing everything involved, right?
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that I've said for years. The moment you start, as an employee, the moment you start taking food out of my children's mouth, you're gone, right? It's that simple. But we have to see that.
Yeah, and I agree with that wholeheartedly, but the hard part is that grandchild.
Absolutely.
And that if it wasn't for my daughter and the fact that that's our first grandchild, he would have been gone already. I love the kid, he's just great, he's a ball of fire, but there's some.
So as Nathan said, stop making excuses. Get it done.
My next and last excuse would be during this time with COVID, but that's
You get the
neither here
bottom
nor
of
there.
DoorDash and Shipt are actually hiring always, and they're actually doing very well. I know people that make $400 a day using that.
That would be right up his alley.
Yeah, because he's great at interacting with people, and if there's ever an issue with the order, he can handle it well. Yeah, but
See, the thing is your comments there show you feel bad about getting rid of him because of what could happen to your daughter, what could happen to your grandchild. But at the end of the day, the reality of it is you are the one that is keeping him from being successful in life.
Oh, I get it.
At the moment, right? Because until you make that decision, he can't find where he needs to be, right? And it's unfair because of the simple fact that you literally, I mean, think about it from a God perspective, you literally could be keeping him from finding his God purpose.
Yeah.
That's your fault.
Yeah, it is, and I've struggled with that as well.
which is two things that I found are really interesting. One, because the profit and loss statements that I had extended back to 2017, and that's actually the year he started. So I don't know if the year before that, if you had actually experienced growth, and as soon as you started, it started going down, but that's a good thing to point out. But two, by keeping him on, like you were keeping him on because you wanted to take care of him, but at the same time, if he stays on, what damage could it potentially do to y'all's relationship? Because I know people that, family members that have worked with each other, but because they didn't get along, it caused the families to split, and they haven't interacted very, very much or at all with each other over the years. So if you do value his relationship or y'all's relationship, sometimes cutting that off would be a good step in the right direction.
I really like it too, how you pointed out about the I'm no longer serving them, I'm a caretaker,
Mhm.
right? And I have taken ownership of someone else's future,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
you know, that's wrong no matter how you look
Yeah,
at it,
it is.
right?
Mm.
That's called codependency.
Codependency, yeah, I get that.
So,
Mm. Yeah, it's good stuff.
remove that burden and brand from your life.
I agree with all that I've heard regarding that. On the flip side, I can only imagine with your first 3 incidents
Mm-hmm.
that you just related, especially the third one, going,
Well, not only did the boy kill himself, he went home, got drunk, shot his stepfather, killed him, called his mom, wrote a letter, and then committed suicide. But that, I know in all actuality, is not on me because his performance was poor. He had to go. Same situation, kind of some different variables, but it comes back to me.
but still, how can that not make anyone with a heart,
Oh yeah, it shook me at first. It was just like I had to get away from people.
yeah.
Yeah, for that moment it was
Anyway,
intense.
That's unique, I would think.
Yeah, yeah.
So, good job on picking out the vision, the fear of delegation, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's something that, you know, that, matter of fact, Pat and I have talked about in the past too, is just that whole idea of you gotta train people up, you gotta give people responsibility, until you give them responsibility, they really can't shine.
Yeah.
So, there is that balance between, you know, delegating to people and, but also being able to be there if they fall to
Mhm.
pick them up, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of goes to something that I told these 2 yesterday. Look, I'm going to give you some leads to call. I don't care if you mess it up, right? I'm not going to put that pressure on you that, oh, you know, look, I've spent X number of dollars on these leads. You can't mess these you can't mess these leads up, right?
Mhm.
That would not be fair to them.
Yeah.
So to give them that, to delegate that to them and say, look, I'm okay, it's all right if you fail. It's okay, I expect it, right? But I expect us to learn from it and grow from it, and let me help you get better at each interaction,
Mhm.
right?
That's a good point, because that's accepting reality. It would be totally preposterous for you to say, here's these leads, you know, if you blow it on your first time, you're done. You know, that would be completely unrealistic.
And unfortunately, that happens a lot in organizations
Yeah.
these days.
I'm a nice guy and all, but they're darn will be perfect.
So,
No room for mistakes here. This is life and death.
absolutely.
Not so much.
Well, I like your point, it's impossible to grow without vision, so that's a good thing. You know, again, back to that whole, what happens if someone's values don't line up with values of the organization, you need freedom up for a better opportunity. I mean, I can't stress that enough. And it is difficult when it's family. You've been there, done that, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, it's very difficult when it's family or someone that you really care about.
It is.
So, but it's still necessary,
Yeah, it is.
you know.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, that ultimately is what led to the blow up between me and Billy, and why Billy doesn't work here.
That's why I blew up right 2-3 weeks ago. Almost
I was
blew up.
hearing that, that was forefront in my mind.
Yeah.
A couple of folks here can relate to this, being in business with family, can't we?
Well, I almost put him in the car physically myself.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just one of those things that, yeah.
Mm.
And so when you said cast the vision, I just was making some notes. You had to hear everyone should learn them by heart, and I put outside of that that's accountability. Use them to help you make decisions that help simplify your business. Hire those that share the same values, that makes business easier. You know, have a monthly group session to highlight one of your core values or your vision. Then I put on there meeting topics. You know, that's a huge opportunity right there. Delegating, perfect. You know, don't do things that you know you suck at. Let somebody else do them. And so overall, I think it was really good. Though I find it funny because you have in your notes something that you didn't actually say.
Yeah.
And
I actually didn't look at any of my notes. I forgot.
yeah. But I find it powerful because you have it here in your final thoughts, where you said, because you're such a giver, it's beneficial to establish boundaries that give you freedom to serve while protecting you from burnout. And then you said, once you've begun delegating responsibility within your business, you can alternate responsibilities to respond to emergency service requests. But you have on here, keeping the Sabbath. I know that you don't work on Sundays, but if you always volunteering at church, are you
That's what it
truly
was.
there?
So,
Right?
yeah.
And so, and that's kind of that's one of those things that speaks to me, and it was kind of goes back to that conversation that you and I had.
Mhm.
I get that. I get that. I feel guilty when I'm not being productive, right?
Mhm.
When I'm not working, I get extreme feelings of guilt when I'm not doing that. You know, Shay doesn't. I can't talk to her about that. She's not a good accountability partner from that aspect for me because she doesn't understand that at all. I mean, she's one of those people that could lay down and, I mean, you put her on the floor right here and she'll take a nap, you know, on a bed of rocks. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's, you know, and not think twice about, you know, about pausing, right? Whereas for me, I find extreme guilt about that. So one of the most difficult things for me in my life is the ability to rest. Right? And so I find that need to fill my time with things as opposed to just having time, right? And then I wonder why I get stressed out and I get burned out and I'm like, I've got to take a break and, you know, it's like that kind of stuff. So that's an important thought process. Matter of fact, it's one of the reasons why I stopped volunteering so much at the church and that kind of stuff and stopped spending as much time doing those kind of things because quite literally I had every waking hour scheduled.
Yeah.
You know, every
Let
waking
me
hour.
toss this out there. I get it, we all get it that you're a driver and you basically have to force yourself to just stop. What if?
Or God forces me to stop.
Yeah.
Makes me lie down by green pastures.
What about those people that might actually be recharged and refreshed by doing such an activity? And I'm not to say that you're not, but I mean, and I get we can't all work 24/7, 365. But what about the event that someone really gets the charge and they feel better after having done some kind of service?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's one of those things that you know, that's the power of being of delegation. But you also have to have someone to be able to delegate to. And so that there's that balance in business anyway.
Right.
There's that balance. In home life, it's as the leader of the household, it's my responsibility to ensure that things get done, so on and so forth, right? So okay, which is cool, but I am literally that person. Shay and I have had conversations about it. We get up from the dinner table needs to be cleaned off. She is the type of person get up from the dinner table, leave everything there, go watch TV, play with the kids, go do whatever, and as long as it gets done before we go to bed at night. But to me, it really bothers me,
Yeah.
right? So it's a stress thing that bothers me significantly if it's not done, right? Because when I'm sitting there,
first, then we will.
absolutely. It's that when I'm sitting there, if I sit there and watch TV, the only thing I can think about is there's dishes, the food on the table. There's, you know, what if the dog gets up on the table and starts getting in the food, and what if the cat gets up there and God, I'm gonna go clean this off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it literally is that, but it's lots of things. And so the ability to turn my brain off is difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It kind of reminds me, so I know a lot of people are like, okay, a lot of us, we have family members that we truly love and care about. And let's say we're in an airplane and something happened and the oxygen masks drop. If we're not putting the oxygen mask on ourselves first and taking the time to breathe, then we're gonna pass out if we're trying to put it on someone else. So that's kind of why it's important for us to make sure that we take that time for ourselves.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Just a couple of things. One, just a personal example from my own life. I'm relatively young and I'm in pretty good shape now, but there was this time, right around the time I was 22, I was in college and I had this incredible, and I still have it, this horrible fear of being a disappointment to my family and to anybody else. So no matter how I feel, I'm going to keep pushing. That was always my mentality. Like I felt the semester of my senior year, I felt terrible all the time. I was literally going until I would fall asleep in random places at friends' houses, and people were like, "Oh, he's just tired." Well, I ended up in the hospital, and I ended up having to come back to Alabama in part because at 22 years old, my body was shutting down. I had pushed myself to a point where my fear of disappointment and my desire to keep pushing made me unable to do anything. I couldn't lift in more than 5 pounds for 6 months. I couldn't get on an airplane for a year. It took me over 2 years to build up physical ability again, just to be able to move around and do stuff like I used to do. And even then, it was like at a diminished capacity. So there's one thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you don't make sure that you take that time, if you don't take care of yourself to the point where you have like something that you can do to relax yourself, you will have to. It will happen by force. It will be one of those things where you'll hit that brick wall.
Well, by the way, now you know why I'm selling my house and buying another, right? With acres of land, so I'm not staring at my neighbors and while they're in their kitchen and saying that looks disgusting. I don't know what even is that she's cooking. Is it chicken? I don't know. You know, because that's one of those things.
I'm just curious, since I know a little of your backstory, did this essentially bring you down, did this coincide with your dad's passing?
No, my dad passed when I was 26. So the physical breakdown happened when I was 22.
Okay, so this was prior to.
Yeah, my dad was still alive back then.
Okay.
He was actually one of the people who helped me get from Kentucky, where I was in college, back home to Alabama.
Yeah.
He helped me move my stuff because, again, I can't pick up my own, like, I can't move some of my books because I can't lift 5 pounds. And
I asked because I know it was stressful for you in those last couple of years with your dad.
oh yeah, it was, but that's.
So I think the important point here is that we both, I'm gonna claim it too, but we both need to make sure that we take focused time, that we're doing things that we wanna do, that we like, that we enjoy, and not dealing with everybody else's mess.
I preach. Yeah.
So,
Some of that self-medicine.
yeah,
That's true.
good job, Nathan.
Oh, there was one other thing that
Yes.
I did say. I have 2 things. I like the way that you express it and you talk with your hands a lot like I do. You move around when you're talking like I do. And so I saw a lot of the way that I communicate with people in the way you communicate with people. And it's really good. But I also noticed you had one thing that you do that I also do, which is that you would say something and you had your bullet points laid out and then you'd have to be like, oh, let me double back. That's one thing that I would give you a little bit of advice on. Make sure that you follow the order as closely as possible, because then it's like, okay, let me double back to this, let me double back to this. That's the only thing that I saw that you had any problems with.
Doubling back. Thank you.
Expressive purpose.
It is, and the only piece of negative feedback that I actually wrote down is slow down.
Slow down. The reason I was speeding up is at 36 minutes when I stopped, so I was like, I didn't give enough time for questions, so I was kind of concerned. So, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, moral of the story is the faster you talk, the harder it is for people to retain you.
Yeah,
Right.
that is true. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right.
Yeah, very good job.
Thank you.
We'll let Micah get set up and we'll get this thing wrapped up.
The camera, the projector, or what?
Did you stop the recording?